Let's go. Streaming data free on the MTN network in South Africa.
This is Omni Sports.
T's and C's apply.
Is VAR just a dream for African leagues? Why doesn't Africa have this tech even at the highest level? And does it truly affect the quality and outcomes of games? To break this all down, we got Mr. Cash and Sport, Nqobile Ndlovhu, with us. Nqobile, let's get straight into it, bro. Let's start here. What exactly is VAR? Because although we're football fans, when we say VAR, what is it actually?
MKT, I think to explain what VAR is essentially it's a system of cameras supported by referees. It's about 16 cameras, high quality video, ball tracking cameras, slow motion cameras, and they're all situated around the top of a stadium to give various angles for a team of up to 4 referees in a room to analyze, movements of a ball and a game in real time. That's essentially what it is. It's essentially a glorified replay system.
All right. But then the other thing that I've seen in football, obviously, as an avid football fan, is goal line technology. Are they using the same thing? Is that the same thing? So
let's just go back a little bit. In about 2009, a company called Hawkeye was born. If you watch cricket or tennis, you would understand what Hawkeye is. These cameras, even though I call it a glorified replay system, essentially the best use for these cameras is that they're able to track a ball in real time and replay that visually so that it gives you an accurate prediction of where exactly a ball is going to go. It's best used in cricket and tennis because you have defined guidelines of exactly what an LBW is and what a ball crossing the line is, or whether it hit the line or it didn't hit the line. Now, goal line technology does the exact same thing. It tracks its cameras put on the frame of a goal, and it tracks the ball to see whether the full circumference of the ball crossed the line or it did not. So they're not the same thing, but they're produced by the same company called Hawkeye Technologies, which is now owned by Sony.
Oh, well, good for them. It's a pretty good thing to have on your side and have own the technology that FIFA wants to use. Good for them. So then it comes to me and I say, we watch African football and we want it to be real, and we see billionaires like Patrice Motsepe buying into football. Why do so many African teams not have VAR then? And to me, it just doesn't make sense.
So there are two primary issues as to why most African teams don't have VAR. The biggest one is cost. It's very expensive. Firstly, you have to license VAR. You can't just use it. And because FIFA only allows nations or countries to license specifically VAR, there's a 10-year patent on VAR. So you can't use any other technology. The costs are extremely high. They range, they go up to about $6.2 million a season. They've been quoted at somewhere around £4 million a season. So it's very expensive. And then there's also costs per game, because in that VAR room, there's about 4 referees. So to just have those referees in that room, it'll cost you about 57,000 Rand, an estimated cost about 57,000 Rand a game. So the total number of stadiums, so every stadium also has to have VAR. And that leads me to our second issue, is that in terms of infrastructure, many African stadiums are just old. If you look particularly in far-flung African countries, if you watch a game from those countries, usually there's only 1 or 2 camera angles. So VAR requires up to 16 cameras, and these cameras have to be high value. They're very, very expensive to put into a stadium. So those are 2 big issues. One is the cost of just having the system and licensing it. The second is that you have to have a standard where there's up to 16 cameras, and most of our stadiums in Africa don't have that many, cameras in place. So it makes it difficult for us to implement the technology across the board, because you can't just have it in one match and not have it in another. If you put a standard and say VAR needs to be used across the league, every stadium available needs to be able to implement it, and there just isn't enough money to do it.
So just to be clear on that cost, you're saying it's around £4 million a season. Is that for every stadium?
It would be in total across the league. But I mean, if you say £4 million, how much is that in rands? It's about 80. I think the last estimate that we put together in like 2023 or 2022 was somewhere around 87 million rand a season.
That is just astonishing to me. It's a number which the entire PSL, which is easily Africa's richest league, couldn't come near being able to afford. I mean, Kev, that sort of number is just not affordable.
Well, it is daft, but there have been so many promises from Danny Jordan that we're going to have VAR in South Africa. We're supposed to have it this season, then it didn't happen. Now he says we're going to have it next season, didn't happen. Now he was talking about maybe the MTN 8 final, we'll have it for that. So it's going to be a one game. People say we can't afford to train referees, we don't have the time. I just don't think there's a will. If they spend the money on VAR, then they don't spend it on Mercedes-Benzes.
Yeah, that's a decision that they would have to make. But that's a good point, right? This sounds like a lot of money for South Africans, 80 million rand. For FIFA, that is what my Nigerian brothers would call walking around money. Money for hand is what they call it there. is $4 million. Are you joking? They could easily fund that for the entire African continent with what FIFA make annually. Why don't FIFA just fund it for Africa and Asia? Like, I thought FIFA weren't a business. They were all about football. Why don't they just fund it for Africa if they want to improve the standard, number one, of refereeing, and number two, of the results and the efficacy of the league?
That's an interesting question, because ultimately speaking, the issue would be, first you have to improve the state of all the stadiums across Africa, because from an infrastructure perspective, all the infrastructure has to be at the same standard, and the costs at that level are astronomical. So if you're talking about 80 million rand to implement it in South Africa, there's 56 African nations which are members of CAF. So the costs are huge. And then on top of that, it would be the costs per game and the licensing costs to license it for the season. So I get the point that that's 80 million odd, but that's just only one country. If you want to implement it across the continent, it gets far more expensive. It's over 800 million. So the costs are massive. But I get the point around saying, why not just pay the license cost and implement a standard across the board? But the major issue that we have in Africa is the infrastructure issue. In Europe, it's easier because the stadiums are newer. The broadcasters have implemented these changes to the stadiums to ensure that there's a better broadcast feed with 16 cameras. But in Africa, it's not the case. So we have a lot more work to do to get there.
Yeah, and I mean, with the amount of money at stake, certainly in South Africa, I can't speak for other leagues, I guess here in Egypt, is that, a ball crossing the line and being a goal or not being a goal, for a team getting relegated can actually save sort of 60, 70 jobs, because when you get relegated, we know Jomo Cosmos, we remember Jomo on a couple of seasons ago, said he'll be back in a season. He's now two leagues down, and that can be all on one result. 3 points can change everything. So for me, it's something we really, really need to sort out. We're joined by Nqobile Ndlovhu, Mr. Catch and Sport, Africa's leading business analyst. We are talking about VAR and the complexity of bringing it to African stadia. I guess the worst thing in life you can do is do nothing, right? We can't just say, okay, well, we can't afford it, so we're not going to do anything. Are CAF actually trying to implement this in Africa? If so, are they on the right track trying to get VAR into African stadia across the board?
Yeah, CAF is definitely doing something about this. CAF has implemented a training plan, which started actually this month in September, where they're looking to train over 100 referees to be proficient and understand the system and be at FIFA level in terms of being able to be VAR referees. So it's definitely going in the right direction. But while we are going in the right direction in terms of trying to put together a standard, CAF is also doing a licensing requirement for all nations to say, for you to participate in CAF competitions, your stadiums have to be at a specific standard. And that standard also includes the fact that it has to be able to accommodate VAR cameras, because their next plan is to then have VAR across the board in CAF competitions. So they are definitely going in the right direction. However, for me, I think there's a bigger issue that we're not addressing here with VAR. What VAR does is it doesn't give the referee a decision. It just amplifies decisions it just amplifies situations where he has to make a decision. Goal line technology says, yes, the ball crossed the line. In tennis, did the ball hit the line? In cricket, is it LBW? That's clear. What VAR does is that it says there is an incident, take a look at it and make a decision. What's the difference between VAR and a replay on sport? There's really no difference. The only difference is that there is this technology that's licensed and it forces you to make that decision. I'm not so sure that we even need VAR because, just improve refereeing as a standard in general and you improve the standard of the league. But do you need to have this licensed product which costs you so much money that most African nations can't afford? Do we even need to get there?
Couldn't agree.
That's
another
question. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the significant error issue, which amplifies that, referees then become a little bit too reliant on the technology and forget to actually do their jobs. And their jobs is to be a good referee. It's also not typical. What happened recently was it a CAF game where the referee blew 5 minutes early. Referees' standards are not great, and we keep talking about how VAR is going to help refereeing. TMO hasn't been a great success. It's been a good success in rugby, but it hasn't been a great success. There's a lot of contentious decisions still made, and the contentiousness of the decisions is going to amplify error, and it's going to amplify anger, and it's going to amplify a lack of confidence in referees.
Absolutely, especially if you need the referee to make a determination based on his interpretation. There's still no clarity there. So what's the point? What's the point of spending all the money? Just take referees to courses and make sure that they get better. That for me would be the better solve, and it would be cheaper.
Just have VAR for when it crosses and goal line technology is what I've always said. Offside and then goals. The rest is already up for interpretation. And one thing we know about football, I can't speak for other sport, everything looks worse in slow-mo. Everything looks worse in slow-mo. So often people are making decisions off an edited piece of information, say for a high tackle or an aggressive boot, off a replay that's been clipped to 3 seconds, and it's going to look so much worse in replay, and that for me has made it even worse, by the way. But listen, it's a TV show. We love the drama. Maybe they get that. They understand that. People like you and me are going to talk about it more and more, and the more we talk about it, the more the FA love it, the more UEFA love it, the more we click on it. So perhaps there's that angle. And if you want to be part of this conversation, 0788 777716, that's 0788 777716. Your thoughts on VAR. Mr. Cash and Sport, where can we find you on social media and your YouTube channel, sir?
You can find me on social media everywhere, on X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at Cash N Sport. So that's CASHN Sport.
That's it. He is
on cashandsport.com as well.
Cashandsport.com, and then we can find you on YouTube, Cash and Sport, huh?
Correct.
All right. That is Africa's leading sports business analyst, Nqobile Ndlovhu, Mr. Cash and Sport, talking VAR. We're going to make some money with Kev for the weekend. I'm looking forward to that. Let's get those bets in.
Listen live and on demand.
Welcome to Omni Sport.